Welcome into the Vandy Sports Podcast alongside Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick. We're here to recap Vanderbilt's 17-7 win at Auburn, their first ever win at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Vanderbilt is bowl eligible for the first time since 2018. Joey, there's all kinds of different numbers and stats to get to in this game. Vanderbilt has beaten Auburn and Alabama in the same season for the first time since 1955. Diego Pavia is 3-0 against Hugh Freeze. I mean, what other numbers you got, Joey? Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't beat Auburn in over 10 years. They haven't. The Alabama one really stood out to me. They haven't beat Alabama and Auburn in the same season since 1955. I was kind of surprised that they had ever done that. But, man, today was just such a monumental day for this program. We had always talked about bowl eligibility being a goal for this program. And until this year, you never really even felt like it was possible. There was that one game against Tennessee a few years ago that would have made them bowl eligible. But today was different. It felt like Vanderbilt was going to win this game as soon as it went down and scored the first time. And Clark-Lee's vision continues to be validated. Today doesn't define this team. Today doesn't stand out as a really special day, but it should. I mean, it's you go into Auburn and win for the first time ever. You become bowl eligible, and that's not even one of their best two games this year probably. So just a monumental day for this program. But, again, it's unbelievable that a day like today is not the best day of the year for this program. That's how far they've come, and I think Clark-Lee really wants to celebrate. He said some really interesting stuff post-game. He said he thinks Vanderbilt football needs to be a good team, and he said that this is a launching pad for them. And I think we're treating it as such. It's unbelievable that them being bowl eligible and the day they're becoming bowl eligible is us talking about, man, they could do more than that. They could win another game or two, or they could continue to push for other goals. And it's just unbelievable that that's not the overriding takeaway from the season. It's this team could be special, and this team already is special, but there's a lot more ahead of it. And that's just, again, a testament to what they've built here. And I think this is probably the earliest they've ever been bowl eligible. I don't know the advanced stats on that, but first time they've won 2 SEC road games in a year since 2013. There's so much going for Vanderbilt right now, and it's one of the hottest programs in college football, Billy.
13.5-point underdogs against Virginia Tech. Vandy wins that one. 22.5 against Alabama. They win that one. 12.5 at Kentucky, correct? That was the line for Kentucky. They beat Kentucky, and then 7.5 here on the road against Auburn, and they beat Auburn. Credit to Barton Simmons for putting that tweet out. But, Joey, getting into the game, because let's face it, it was ugly. I don't think we're going to be talking about many pretty SEC wins this season, at least for Vanderbilt. Maybe down the road they get to a point in their tenure, in Clark-Lee's tenure, where they can start talking about pretty wins. But offensively, for Pavia to only complete 9 passes and 143 yards, and Vanderbilt win 17-7, I think that tells you about the defensive effort. And you tweeted out that they held Jarquez Hunter, the SEC's leading rusher, to 50 yards on the day today. Joey, that defense won the game for them today. I know Pavia and the offense did just enough there at the end, but without that defensive effort today, Vanderbilt does not win that game.
Yeah, absolutely not. I think that was the best showing Vanderbilt's defense has had all year. And it's just a testament to them learning how to win. They weren't at their best today. They weren't at their best against Kentucky or Ball State. They won all those games, and I'm not sure that's something that would have happened in the past of the program. I think Clark-Lee said today that they always kind of had the vision that this could be what the defense does. And you got to think Auburn's not the best offense in the league, but they have put up good performances before. And Vanderbilt just completely shut them down. Peyton Thorne just looked rattled the entire day. Jarquez Hunter, again, the SEC's leading rusher, was completely shut down. It felt like Vanderbilt really just took it to Auburn defensively. And I think their front seven is so much better. I think their back end today was really good too. Martel Hyde, I think, really deserves credit defensively, but also with the punt return. He had that huge PBU on a second and long, I think. And then he had the punt return that really felt like it changed the momentum of this game. It swung it. The defense, though, kept getting Auburn off the field over and over again, and I think that was a huge key today. Vanderbilt's offense, not quite good enough to beat a lot of teams in the league, but, I mean, we said that for the last couple of weeks, and they're 3-1 in the last month, and they haven't played their best game in over a month. They haven't played super well in any of those games, and they still won over and over again. That's what Clark-Lee wanted with this program. He didn't want it to have to be fluky. He didn't want it to have to be anything special. They're just going and beating teams, and they're beating teams in places they've never beat them before. They're beating teams in ways they've never beaten them before, and it just keeps happening over and over again. It's just such a special season for this team.
It really is. And Joey, they're letting teams beat themselves. Vanderbilt, I can't remember the last time they beat themselves in a game. Probably, I would guess, the Georgia State or Missouri game. I mean, both of those games, they beat themselves. And what Diego Pavia said has turned to be correct this season. Vanderbilt football is the only team that can beat Vanderbilt football. I know some people might laugh at me when I say that, but if you go back and look at the games, even the Texas game, offensively, and I know that might be the one game where you say Texas was just a little bit better, but still, Joey, I mean, you play another quarter or two in that game, you never know what happens. But they played clean football, only 3 penalties for 21 yards. They were 4 of 16 on third down, which if you told me that before the game, I don't know that I would have told you they would have won the game, but that tells you how good the defensive effort was. And Joe, you go back to the end of the game, the last 5-6 minutes, Auburn beat themselves. And that has been the epitome of this season. Vanderbilt has avoided beating themselves for the most part, especially in their SEC wins. They haven't beat themselves. They let Alabama beat Alabama. Kentucky beat themselves too with all those missed kicks. Auburn today. So again, and that's I want to give Vanderbilt credit for that because they had chances to beat themselves today too. But that reminded me today, Joey, that in their wins, when Vandy is rocking and rolling, they're not beating themselves. And I know that's true for just about every team, but boy, did Auburn kick themselves today. And I know Auburn fans were obviously booing the team today. Hugh Freeze said he didn't hear the boos, which I think is pretty comical. And even after the game, there's a video out that Stephen Hubbard telling all the other reporters that Pavia's 3-0 against Auburn. He just did it last year with New Mexico State. Joey, this team has a swagger, a confidence. We've talked about it. I don't know what else can be said about this team at this point. I mean, they keep building another level of discussion, and it, like you said, it's special. That's a good word for it. But they didn't beat themselves today. Auburn beat themselves, but I don't want to take away from Vanderbilt what they did today to win the game. They went out and won the game with a touchdown there to Stowers, but they didn't beat themselves, and that was huge, Joey.
It let Auburn beat itself, and I think that was probably the story of the day. Is Vanderbilt did more right than Auburn did, and it didn't matter that Diego Pavia was inefficient, didn't complete 10 passes. It didn't matter that they didn't hit 100 rushing yards because they were the cleaner team. They won on the margins. They won special teams, and that's always what they've envisioned, right? They've never envisioned going and winning in shootouts and 400-yard passing games. They've envisioned controlling the time of possession, winning in the margins, things along those lines. And today it felt like Auburn kind of took Vanderbilt out of its offensive identity. Didn't matter. Vanderbilt went and won the game, and I just think they are really leveling up their focus, and they're leveling up in terms of even when they're banged up, even when they're not playing well, even when their best assets get taken away from them, they still find a way to win. And that's something that's really stood out to me. You mentioned Stephen Hubbard. He was a joy in the press conference today. He asked him how he wanted the transfer class, which I think we need to talk more about. It's a transfer class that's completely changed the identity of Vanderbilt football. Corday Sidner, Brandon Fontenette, Diego Pavia, Stephen Hubbard, everybody who came in completely changed what this program's been about. Chase Mitchell. Stephen Hubbard said he wants them to be remembered as GOATs. And he joked that they should be naming McGugin Center after Stephen Hubbard and Diego Pavia, which I thought was just a great line. But this team's got swagger. They love each other. That's what Clark Lee said when I asked him why this team is special. They've really bought into the brotherhood message, and they're good. I mean, they're really good. They go and beat Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and they've just done it over and over again. Every time they're doubted, every time a guy individually is doubted, Vanderbilt goes and wins, and it's just happened time and time again.
6-3. 3-2 in the SEC. You would imagine they'll be ranked in the top 25 tomorrow, Joey. And I'm not saying we're going to get another reaction out there, but we'll talk about it throughout the week and discuss Vanderbilt.
Not the top story.
It's everything's crazy at this point, Joey. I don't like this is. I'm not going to sit here and say you can already call this the best Vanderbilt football season ever, but it's tracking for that. I mean, to beat Alabama at home, a number 1 ranked Alabama team, and then to go make history a few weeks later and beat Auburn at Jordan-Hare. Why can't this team go beat South Carolina for the first time in 15 years at home? Why can't they maybe go into Baton Rouge and beat an LSU team? And at the end of the season? Why can't they beat Tennessee? I think that's what I keep asking myself. And I think what people are learning is that what you just said, they are a good team. This is a legitimate force to be reckoned with in Vanderbilt. But I think people don't realize it because of you don't have the skyrocketing stats. You don't. It's not necessarily sexy, or fun to watch at times, but they get it done. And that's a testament to this team, Joey. They know how to win. Today was ugly. And last year they didn't know how to win. And really, for the most part, under Clark Lee, there were a lot of games where late they would falter. Give credit to the defense. They're late. They stood tall. They saw the fumble there late, forced by Derrick Wright. I mean, they just, in all three phases, Joey, I'm glad you mentioned special teams. Special teams maybe even more of a factor in the game than the defense today. Defense and special teams. Clark Lee's calling card. He got a lot of flack last year with his punt comment. Well, now Mirko, I mean, he's one of the better punters in the SEC, I think you could say. Martell Height, one of the better punt returners statistically in the country. And, special teams still matters. And I think it's really impressive. We're not talking about the offense today. We're talking about defense and special teams. Joey, this team knows how to win.
Yeah. And I look at it and say, man, early in the year, it was their offense against Virginia Tech. They would go down and score just about every time. Even Mizzou, they stayed in the game because their offense made timely plays. Alabama, they kind of won a shootout in that game. Since that Alabama game, the offense hasn't had a game near that level.
Right.
And its defense has picked up its level, and that's why they've won. It's complementary football in its truest form, and I thought that was fully on display today. You look at the defense gets the stop. Martell Height returns the punt. Vanderbilt, I thought, was going to go score a touchdown, but kicks the field goal. There's two phases there, and then when the defense maybe is wearing down a little bit, Vanderbilt puts together a 9-minute drive and wears down the Auburn defense. It's complementary football in its truest sense. When the offense doesn't have its best day, the defense picks it up. When the defense doesn't have its best day, the offense picks it up. And a lot of the time, the special teams has been right there with both phases. So Vanderbilt knows how to win, and it knows how to do everything at all three levels well. It hasn't all happened at once outside of that Alabama game, and it maybe didn't even in that Alabama game because the defense didn't play its best game. But they've still had one phase step up and win the game for them just about every game.
Real quick, Joey, how much time you got?
I'm at 9%.
Okay, we got time. I'll just let your phone die. Joey's phone running low down there at Jordan-Hare. We'll wrap it up here in a few minutes or so. But I thought it was really interesting. Brian Longwell, he wanted to be an Auburn Tiger, and he had some motivation today. He tweeted out after the game, maybe the most, which this is going viral, by the way, maybe the most savage comment I've ever seen. One of the better tweets I've ever seen. Showed a text from, I would guess, an Auburn staffer, linebacker coach, whatever. Brian, I'm sorry, buddy. We're not going to sign a high school linebacker in this class, more than likely. You're a great player with a bright future. Hope you and yours have a Merry Christmas. Brian said Merry Christmas and tweeted that out. That's the thing with this team, Joey. They don't care. And I think that's a big difference. Going back to last season, it didn't feel like Vanderbilt, because we covered all of last season. And that's what I think a lot of the comparison is. You look at how bad last season was, comparing it to this season. There's a lot of new faces, of course, but just the mentality. And you got to give Clark Lee credit, because I know a lot of new coaches were brought in too. And obviously Jerry Kill deserves credit. But for Clark Lee to be able to instill this through his assistant coaches into these players, a sense of confidence and a new swagger after such a bad season last year, that's Coach of the Year worthy. I mean, you're seeing after the game, Stephen Hubbard, an older, experienced guy. That's what I keep thinking about. Old players, experienced players, they know how to win, and they're hungry. And that's been the theme all season. And even before the season, we wrote a lot about the chip on this team's shoulder. Joey, it's reigned true. I mean, and that tweet from Longwell is just a small example. You go back to Stephen Hubbard post game and what he was doing with Pavia, like they don't care. But they're also confident. And that it starts with Pavia, but you also have to give the ultimate credit to Clark Lee, which is why I think he's up for Coach of the Year in the country.
Yeah, I mean, they've taken on Clark Lee's identity, right? He's a guy who feels like he is maybe undervalued. He feels like he's a guy who doesn't get enough credit, gets doubted a little bit too much, and the whole team feels that way, right? Even CJ Taylor today, I think bordered on cocky, and I think this team is cocky in the best way
The
possible.
Bo Jackson comment.
Yeah, I think they're cocky in the best way possible, right? They believe in themselves more than you can even articulate, and that's an unbelievable thing after they went 2-10 last year. Obviously, it's a different group, but it doesn't all come from Pavia. It comes from a lot of guys who believe in themselves, believe in their teammates. Brian Longwell, obviously, I think is a huge story today, and probably one that's not getting enough credit. Auburn obviously turned him down, and I did a story about that a few weeks back. That's where he gets his chip from. I don't know that he gets to this point in his career if he doesn't get that text on Christmas morning, which, by the way, why are we texting?
Insane on Christmas Day.
Yeah. I didn't even really believe that when he told me that the first time. I was like, what? But, yeah, I mean, the CJ Taylor thing sticks out to me, too. He was asked, I think, something about Auburn's tradition and coming here and winning for the first time, and he goes, I don't see Bo Jackson running the ball in here anymore. And, I mean, this team just has embraced, we don't care who's playing against us. We don't care what the odds are in Vegas. We're going to go win, and we're going to let people know that we won after the game. This team has marketed themselves just about better than anybody else. And like I said, cocky in the best way possible, because they wouldn't have gotten to this point if they weren't a little bit.
I love Twitter has been amazing today. Alabama state champs, Diego Pavia, the new governor of Alabama. I mean, the internet, the internet has fallen in love with this team. And I think that, Twitter ultimately isn't the end all be all, Joey, but I don't know a single high school football player or college football player that isn't on Twitter. And a lot of Saturdays, Vanderbilt football has dominated Twitter and social media in general, whether it's Twitter, Instagram. To wrap it up, this is sustainable. And I know we're going big picture here, and we ramp this up every Saturday when we start talking about this. But Joey, I don't get why this can't continue. And not just this season. Down the road, as long as Clark Lee is here, as long as Jerry Kill and Tim Beck, and we'll see about Diego Pavia, of course. But at the end of the day, this team has done something that no other Vanderbilt football team has ever done. And so why can't it continue? And this season, Joey, I guess that's where we'll wrap up. What did you learn about this team today? And going forward, what do you give them? What chances do you give them against South Carolina and then rolling into that LSU-Tennessee game?
I want to go back to your point about them not doing something that no other Vanderbilt football team has done, which is captivating the country. They didn't play their best game today. The eyes of the nation are still on them. That's a big testament to what they've done and a big testament to the personalities they have. They don't get to where they are without the personalities. Like you said, it is a season unlike any that Vanderbilt football has had. And I do think it's sustainable. I think their NIL is really going to move forward. Now, can you find another Diego Pavia? I'm not sure. Can you find another Brandon Fontenette? Not sure. Eli Stowers? I'm not sure. But they seem to know what the mold is for guys like that. And I think it is repeatable with the momentum they have and the NIL they have. I have no reason to believe that they can't do it again. Obviously, they're going to lose a lot, but why can't they gain a lot, Billy? I will say, I talked a little bit about this in my story. You're looking at it and saying it is probably sustainable. Clark Lee does have a really, really solid pitch now. He has some results to validate his vision. But, Billy, Vanderbilt football is playing meaningful football in November again. I mean, they did it a few years ago, and you were saying, man, maybe they can get to a bowl. I think this is probably one of the earliest years they've ever got to a bowl game, and they've got a lot ahead of them. So we'll talk about next year a lot, but right now Vanderbilt football is playing meaningful games in November, and it's not just meaningful in terms of are you going to get to a bowl game? It's how many wins can you get to? How far can you go? What bowl game can you get to? There's a world in which this team gets 9 wins, which is something, but they're motivated to get more, and they're not done here. And Clark Lee, like he said, thinks this could be a springboard and not their arrival. I think they could totally go beat South Carolina. I'll probably predict them to do so. I predicted them to do so last week. Maybe I'm finally smart, Billy. Maybe I finally have come around to making a good prediction. But Vanderbilt beats Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and I didn't know if I would say that at the beginning of the year. You thought this was one of their more winnable games, but in no world did we think it was going to be their 6th win. I don't know if anybody but maybe Diego Pavia and Clark Lee thought it would be. I don't even know if Clark Lee thought that, but they have come in here and taken care of business in a way that is just impressive, and it feels like every week it's more impressive, even if they're not playing their best football, which they didn't this weekend.
Joey said it. Vanderbilt beats Auburn 17-7. First win ever at Jordan-Hare Stadium. First time going bowling since 2018. First win over Alabama at Auburn in the same season since 1955. All kinds of numbers coming out, Joey, and I'm sure they'll keep coming out tonight. Great coverage, my man, and safe travels back up here to Nashville. And I'm sure we'll talk early, whether it's Monday or Tuesday. We'll probably try to get a podcast out at that point and talk about a ranked Vanderbilt team and prepare for South Carolina next Saturday. So Vanderbilt gets it done in Auburn, Alabama, 17-7. That's Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick. We'll have more coverage coming up throughout the week, but that'll do it for another Vandy Sports Podcast.